Thank you all for being here. So my name is Kevin Steerhoff, like Sue said, incoming president, past vice president. Done a couple demos here, and I wasn't planning to do this one, but Wells took a spill and hurt his knee and had surgery on Thursday. So rather than not have a demo at all, which I think is a big reason why we come here, I decided to demo how to make a festive Christmas tree that I just made a bunch of for my holiday. That's what I plan to do. It's going to be kind of quick. There's not a lot to making a Christmas tree like this. So my hope is to demonstrate how I do it, and then I brought some extra blanks, and I'm hoping that maybe some brave souls out in the audience will come up and give their shot at it. Try to turn a Christmas tree any which way you want. There's lots of different ways to do it. If you go on Instagram or any of those things this time of year, you can find about several hundred different people demonstrating making Christmas trees, and they all look different. Dwayne Christensen just sent around a really cool collection that he made from the trunk of last year's Christmas tree, which I actually set mine aside for that very reason. I just haven't gotten around to turning it yet, but I'm inspired to do that now. So they tend to be relatively small. The blanks that I brought today are about 1.5 inches square by 6 inches long. I made some bad choices, and I had a piece of wood come off the lathe and struck me in the nose. If you looked at the image, wear your face shield. Don't move your tool rest while the work is spinning. That's what got me in trouble. Was I had finished one of these pieces that was round, and I dropped my tool rest and pulled it back. And then I checked up a new square piece, and I wasn't paying attention. When I slid my tool rest in, the work came down on top of the lathe and came up at my face. The way I tend to do these things is not between centers, but rather in a 4-jaw chuck on one side with tailstock support on the other. Kind of makes it easy when you're doing lots of these things to get them in and out repetitively. I do mark the ends for center, which kind of helps me. If the ends aren't square, it helps me get it on axis inside the chuck jaws. Safety first. I try to do these with minimal tools just to demonstrate that it's easy to do that. You can do this all with a skew. A lot of people do this with a skew. I often try to demonstrate that, but I'm not great with a skew. And for the sake of time, I'm going to rough it down to round with a spindle gouge, or with a spindle roughing gouge, and then I'll do most of the work with a 3/8 inch spindle gouge with a fingernail grinder. So the first thing I'll do is take this down to round quickly, and then I'll make some marks, and we'll talk about design and things like that. We're doing spindle work, and this is pretty balanced. That's about 1,500, which feels good to me for roughing out. If you're just doing one of these, you might take it all the way down to round and then taper the rest. But if you're doing a lot of them, it saves cuts if you start doing your taper right from the beginning. And so I'm going to start taking little cuts here and then work my way back, and then I'll round it off at the end when I get done. So then you've sort of got your cone shape, which gets you most of the work. And then I tend to mark out where my base is going to be. And then this is all personal preference in terms of design. I'll put a little base like that, leave a little bit of a gap for a trunk. And then I'm more or less dividing this up into however many groups of branches. Now at this point, I'll leave the tailstock in for a little bit until I get down toward the end of that. I'm going to mark out the base, mark out these lines with some V-cuts, and then do some little shallow coves to shape the branches. And then that's kind of it. I'm not going to sand. I got my 3/8 spindle gouge.
You didn't bring a parting tool for that?
Could you use a parting tool for that? Yeah. I just brought my narrow one today. So it'll take you a while to do it with this one. I have a beating and parting tool, which works really nicely for that sort of thing. I don't like a square trunk on mine, so the spindle gouge allows me to have like a little bit more shape to it. gonna leave the trunk at that. You can do whatever you want with these things. Wells sent a list of safety tips, and that was one to always wear good shoes in case you drop a gouge on your foot. There's lots of very exposed blood vessels there that cause you some pain and loss of fluids. Now, I didn't make this round earlier on, and I've got some flat spots, so I'm gonna take that down, get rid of those, and then I'll start doing the branches. Now they're gone. All right, so these are the V cuts to establish the bottoms of the branches. And I used to start at the bottom and work my way up, but then I decided to go the other way around. I just made like 35 of these things for Christmas, so I figured out what works well for me. So I'm going to take the tailstock away at this point. Since I used the tailstock, there's a hole in the end of it, so you got to make sure you turn that away. And it's still there. Very much so.
Kevin, you can also leave that hole there so you put something on the top of your tree as an ornament.
True. You can turn finials on the end of it. I've seen people do stars and other shapes on the top. I went with just a traditional shape with no top.
A little eye bolt would work great for hanging it.
A little eye hook.
Yeah.
All right. Now I just work our way down. And it's worth it at this point to get things right with your gouge. It'll save you some sanding down the road. So before you take it off the lathe, you want to stop and look for little tool marks and things like that to fix at this stage. It's tempting. I want to keep plowing through that bit of wood, but I've had several times where it forced its way through, hit the next branch up, and took a big chunk out of it. So you can either take it down this way or do a little lighter cut first, and then go back and finish the heavier cut. Okay. One last cut. pretty happy with that. I'm gonna call it good there. And this is where you would do any sanding that you plan to do. And I'm kind of happy with this one, so I'll sand it real quick. Won't generate a lot. Starting at 120.
Sure, Sharon.
$220. When you're doing this on a check, you got to watch your knuckles too. Never happened to me before, but I can imagine it hurt. And 320. That's usually enough. For knickknacks. So I'm happy with that. Go ahead and part off. Use my narrow parting tool since I don't have a lot of extra material to work with here. Create a little bit more space. You want to make sure that it's undercut a little bit so it doesn't rot. It's hanging on the tree, it doesn't wear anywhere. Not the nibble.
Ta-da.
Christmas tree.